Hello everybody, this is Laura Alameri, and I have two special guests here today. I have Dawn Augsten and her puppy Lila. And Dawn is going to talk about today about one of her favorite strategies. Well, she is a jack of all trades, as she says. She does a lot of things. She does buy and hold, fix and flips, Airbnb, wholesaling. And she knows very well how to navigate the private lending world, so she does a lot of things. But today we're going to talk about buy and hold as she knows it, and also the BRRRR method that she uses, and a little bit about the Airbnb aspect as well. So there is a lot to discuss here in the next few minutes. So tell me a little bit about how did you get started in real estate?
So I grew up in real estate. I'm from Florida, born and raised. My parents have been buying since the 80s, and they've done all of their own property management. So I have two other siblings, and the three of us, we were their source of cheap labor growing up. So we were always working on the weekends and mowing lawns, and during the summers we were helping them with the business. I can paint, I can do tile, I can set a toilet, I can troubleshoot on ACs, you name it. I've probably already been exposed to it at some point in my life, just because of how much work we've done with my parents in the business.
Now, you went to college, and you actually did real estate while you were in college. So, and you know, I want to talk a little bit about your college experience. You know, what did you go to college for? I actually realized I never asked you that. And also, you know, as you were in college, real estate came of a side dish to your college experience and got you going in real estate as well. So what do you go to college for?
So I went to college. I went to UCF, University of Central Florida, go Knights, and I went for business management, and I minored in real estate. And I had no idea at the time that I would actually end up being in real estate full-time after that. But being in college and doing the property management that I did allowed me to go in that direction. What happened was I was the last kid, and my parents decided, hey, we're gonna buy a house and you're gonna have roommates, and we're not gonna move you every single year like we did your brothers. So I said, okay. And so we went and we looked for a house, and they picked out a really nice house, and we closed on it, and I had roommates already lined up. And so my roommates basically paid the mortgage for the house that I lived in. And then after that, that was in 2007, and so we probably paid a little bit too much for the house, but that price is coming back up actually right now. But after that, you know, the market crashed, and we picked up houses that were much, much cheaper, that I continued to do the same thing. I would find groups of kids that were going to school, and they would live in these houses, and I managed them for my parents. I cut the grass, I did all the maintenance, and that was part of my college job. When I was in college, I did all the leases, and talked to parents, and you know, would troubleshoot with kids and things like that. But that's kind of how I got into real estate further than I expected, with a built-in college job.
But you went for business management and real estate, so there was something in the back of your mind that real estate was going to be your career, or something in the real estate field?
I was open to it. I just didn't know exactly what it would be.
Okay.
Because being a college kid, you know, you don't have any money to where you're like, okay, I'm going to invest. And I didn't know about the other strategies, because I felt like my parents always did buy and holds growing up. So that was kind of just the strategy that I was exposed to. And flipping really wasn't an option with, you know, everyone getting burned at that point while I was in college. So everybody, you know.
Yeah, you came in just at the time when the real estate and everything else was happening.
Correct.
In a bad way.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So great. So what are you currently doing?
So my husband and I invest. We actually invest in a different market than where I live. We're in Greenville, South Carolina, and we kind of do a mixed bag of stuff in real estate, which is great because I feel like it diversifies us. We started out buying and holding, but we would buy distressed properties, and then I would come in And I was able to form a crew in South Carolina that works with me, and I would do all the design stuff, and they would knock it out, and then we would rent it, and we would pull our money out and then do it all over again. And so some of the properties that we came across, we realized that there's a lot of Airbnb potential. So instead of just putting it on the market to rent, we would furnish it, and then we would throw it up on Airbnb and have guests come and stay.
Right. So you're really doing the what they call the BRRRR method, and to buy, the rehab, refinance, rent, and repeat. And then also the Airbnb, which is the smart way you do it, is you say, well, we bought them to rent anyway, and then since the Airbnb, you probably make more with less headache. Right?
Correct.
So for now, but worst case scenario, if you had to rent them, they would still be good rentals.
Yes, they would be. I mean, we even went as far as we realized that the Airbnbs were successful with single family homes, but also you could do it with multiplexes. So we started researching multiplexes that we could then do mix. So we would come in and we would have maybe 2 long-term renters, and then we would have the rest be Airbnb. So we actually were able to do that with a few different multiplexes in Greenville, which is awesome.
Right. So yeah, that's and you diversified yourself. Now, currently you are working, and I want you to kind of talk about this, obviously not giving out specifics, but you're basically doing all 3 strategy in one big real estate package. So want to talk a little bit what you're doing right now, just in general?
Oh, okay, yeah. So right around Thanksgiving time, this deal fell in our lap based off a property that we had purchased with this couple before. The son had a dad who was a real estate investor and was buying for, I don't know, the past 15 to 20 years. And he would go to auctions and he would do foreclosures, you name it, anything where he could get a discount. He was picking up properties. And this past year, he actually passed away. And so he had this huge portfolio, and we ran into this couple where they had that dad that passed, and they said, hey, we have these properties if you're interested in them. And so I started going through, and we're under contract for 14 properties right now. And it's pretty great because we're able to hold on to basically 7 of them. We're going to pick up 2 with another investor, and then we're financing 6 of them, and I plan to flip 1, and then we're wholesaling the rest of them. So we're able to actually fund that flip based off of the wholesaling numbers, which is really exciting.
And what I want to point out that is interesting that, knowing a little bit of different strategies, not knowing I'm just going to do buy and hold strictly, or I'm not just going to wholesale strictly, but doing a combination of, and also working with money partners or private lenders, that's why you're able to diversify.
Correct.
And I think as growing as a real estate investor, you have to realize that in the beginning, you might be very focused on just one strategy because that's what you're comfortable with, but eventually, to have different strategies that you can apply, you're never going to leave money on the table, basically. So, you started in the beginning years ago with mainly just rental and managing rentals, but now fix and flip, wholesaling, using private money, and you learn a lot by doing it too, right? Because a lot of what you've done, you learned just by going out there and see how to make it work.
That's right. It's a process because you cannot learn everything overnight. And some of the things you just have to learn as you go. I still remember our first flip in Greenville, South Carolina. I was planning our wedding in Fort Lauderdale at the same time, and I learned so much in that process of flipping a home. Even with my background in construction, I was blown away by how many other things I learned by flipping that house.
Right.
So it was a really rewarding experience.
So let's talk about a little bit, what's your biggest mistake you think you've done, or one of the biggest mistakes? Because in real estate, it's always, it's a roller coaster, right? You do great, things will happen, then you do some setbacks, then you do great again. But what is some of the mistake that you can remember said, I learned a lot from that?
I know that I minored in real estate, But I sometimes wonder where I'd be at in my career if I didn't actually go to college, because you don't need a college education in order to do real estate. I think in college you learn a lot of time management and things like that. Or if you're going to college for, you want to be a doctor or a lawyer or accountant and things, and it's really important. But in real estate, probably not so much. So I kind of wonder, like, if I would have been fresh out when the market was at its lowest point, and getting out there and grinding, you know, what the picture would look like. So I wouldn't say that's a mistake. It's just, you know, it would have been a different direction.
And what are you most proud of? Or what's some of the things that you say, you know what, you know, I'm most proud that I've done that?
I would say what my husband and I have built in South Carolina is probably what I'm most proud of. My parents only got to see the beginning of the process up there, and they haven't been back, and it's been about 3 years, and so they want to come up this spring, and I'm actually really excited to show them what we've accomplished.
Okay.
So that's, Greenville is probably what I'm most proud of.
And you know, so being an entrepreneur and being especially in real estate, where you have so many ups and downs in the business, you have good days and bad days, what do you think, what helps you to keep you motivated, to get you up in the morning and really, you know, just be ready for the challenge? What helps you? What do? Do you listen to some podcast? Do you do some type of practice every day that helps you?
So I definitely listen to podcasts. There's a lot of grounding that and personal development. I feel like that helps a lot, especially with some of the challenges that I have coming up. What else? Meditation is definitely on the list this year to get into and incorporate that into my daily routine. But I feel like just listening to different speakers like Abraham Hicks and, you know, Neville Goddard and things like that, it really helps put into perspective what I'm doing, and it keeps me focused on the direction that I'm trying to go and what I'm trying to accomplish.
Right. And that's the thing you have to work on every day, you know. And honestly, I would say I did it the first 20 years I've been in the business. I didn't do any of that. I was just strictly doing real estate, you know. And when I started 10 years ago, when I started changing my attitude and actually incorporating, like, the first 2-3 hours of the day for me is really working on myself and my mindset. That's what has helped me a lot over the last 10 years, especially after we went through the housing crisis and I saw big changes in my real estate career. So, so if you had to make some recommendation for somebody that's new starting in real estate, you know, what would you think is one of the biggest recommendations?
Don't be scared to jump, because I feel like people, it's really easy to get behind learning and saying, like, oh, I don't know enough, and you're never ever going to know everything. And a lot of it actually is hands-on learning, and you learn it the best when you're in the thick of it. So that would be something that I would really recommend, as well as just keep going.
Right.
Don't be discouraged. You know, if things don't feel like they're happening, I can tell you when I first started in Greenville, it definitely didn't feel like things were happening. And then at the end of the year, you look back and you're like, wow, like that all happened. But when you're in the thick of it, it really doesn't feel like it. But if you just work on those little bits of momentum to go in the right direction, you'll get there, because that momentum definitely builds and you'll get to where you need to go.
Yeah. And Dawn speaks at my retreats as well. And at the last retreat we did in Miami, you said something that I definitely agreed, and a lot of people bring it up still to this day. And one of the things is, somebody asked you what is the biggest tidbit that you would give to somebody, you said consistency.
Yes.
So you want to elaborate a little more? And I say to that all the time to people. It's like, well, you know, I'm working full time now. Maybe I can do it on the weekend. And I was like, no, you have to do something every day, even if it's 30 minutes in an hour, because there is something that does for you focus of, you know, doing something. You know, you go through the training, but also you have to implement. So consistency is always something that I stress, and you said that too. So you want to elaborate on that, why you think it's so important to be consistent in this business?
I think it's really important to be consistent anywhere you're focusing, because if you're not consistent, then you're not really focusing on something. And so that combination of your focus and consistency really drives you in the direction that you're trying to go. And like you said, even just a half hour every day, so that way you're building that momentum towards whatever you're working on. You know, you can't decide one day all of a sudden, okay, I'm going to be a fit person. You know, you have to actually do something every day to work towards doing that. And it's no different in real estate or anything that you're trying to accomplish.
Right. And one of the things I want to also maybe point out is that you were born in real estate, right? You were born around real estate because of your parents.
Yeah.
And so for you, was it maybe a second nature for you to actually be in real estate? So you never had any doubts that it might not work for you just because you saw it working all your life? So how did it put you in a different maybe mindset than somebody that never been around real estate and now is all of a sudden say, oh, I want to give this a try? And this may be something that you can help people, because you know, to be like I started, I was only 23 years old, but I wasn't in real estate before, where you had been around real estate. So for you, was it maybe an easier transition to go into the real estate because you saw it working?
Yes, but no. I feel like that's a loaded question.
Yeah, it is.
And I say that because, so my family experience, while it gave me a lot of knowledge, it didn't equip me with the confidence at first when I first started doing real estate. And actually, separating myself from my family's business was really what gave me the confidence to do what I do now, to be honest. Because my entire life, my family has always said, you know, you and your brothers are going to get this business. This is going to be yours one day. And, you know, so we always contributed and we were happy to contribute. And then once I graduated from college, I came home to take over the family business, and I kind of learned otherwise, that really wasn't the plan that my parents had, because they weren't ready to relinquish the control of the business that they had built, which I get. You know, if you spend all this time fostering and making something, to have someone that you view as, you know, your kid or your little girl, to take it over is difficult. But at the same time, what it did was it really hurt my confidence in what I knew in real estate. And so it took me getting out of South Florida and actually going to work for someone in Indianapolis. And, you know, I did an internship, and at the end of the internship, he was like, hey, I want you. Like, you know what you're doing, you know what you're talking about. And it took hearing that from someone else to really be like, wow, like, I can do this. Like, I know what I'm doing. And, you know, and so once I left the nest and was able to do real estate on my own, a lot of it was intuition and, you know, trusting my gut and, you know, saying, okay, these are the numbers and I know I can make this work, and making, you know, smart situations that would appear risky to other people that don't have the background. But because you educate yourself, you're able to say, okay, this is risky, but I know all the different factors involved, and so it's not as risky as it may seem.
Right. Yeah, it's like Warren Buffett says, a risk comes from not knowing what you're doing.
Correct.
And that's pretty much what you say. You know, not knowing what you're doing obviously amplifies the risk. So it's definitely something that you have to keep in mind. So now moving forward, what are your plans as far as real estate? What do you envision in the next 5 years?
So,
and I know I kind of threw this question on you. She wasn't prepared, so you know.
I would love to be in other markets. I kind of ventured out into the Jacksonville market this past year. I don't have anything there, but I also chose not to do buy and hold there right away, which is what to me is the easier thing to do, because that's what I grew up in. And so I chose a different strategy that was brand new to me, and so I'm still working on that. But I would like to be in different markets in the next 5 years.
And one of the things you said at the last retreat, actually a couple of weeks ago, is that you take the time when you go into a market to really understand the market. And I think it's very important, you know, when everybody talks about doing virtual investing as far as buying hold or wholesaling, but really taking the time, like with Greenville, you took the time to really study the market for a while before you jumped into it. So it wasn't just like because you heard somebody say, oh, that's a great market. You actually went there, physically went there, and, you know, connected and networked and got to know the environment before you jump into it. And the same thing with Jacksonville or any other market, you really take the time. So do you want to elaborate for a minute about that, the importance of doing that?
Yeah, I think it is really important. One thing that I wish I would have done more in Greenville, and I felt I didn't do because I was still growing into my investor shoes, was the networking part. I was able to network enough to get the people that worked for me, but I felt like I missed out on all the awesome people that I could network with in Greenville. And so when I was in Jacksonville with the investments that I had under my belt, when I went to speak to other people in the Jacksonville market, marketing was a lot of fun because I was meeting a lot of other people who are doing the same things, and we could trade tips and, you know, have each other's back. And so that was actually something I really enjoyed about learning that the Jacksonville market is not only, you know, driving the neighborhoods and things like that, but going to the different events and meeting the people who are there full time and, you know, just have a different opinion of the different areas just because they've been there. And that's part of doing your research, right? Because I feel like if you're going to put your money or energy towards any type of market, then you really need to do your research and check it out at least at the very minimum to make sure that what you're getting into is where you want to put your time and money.
Right, and the fact is that you did network and you got to know the environment and the people is what brought you even to this last deal that you're doing, these 14 properties, because of your connections and really get to know people and talk to people instead of just doing everything long distance. So the thing is, I always say is you have to combine a little bit of old-fashioned way of doing things, like the person-to-person contact, together with the new way of doing things. And so if you marry the two, instead of just going totally virtually, totally detached, but you do that, but also together with being there, networking, get to know people, get to know the market, then you amplify your success.
Correct.
And that's very important. Great. Well, thanks for taking this few minutes to talk. I know I like to bring people that have stories to share, that are really walking the talk out there.
Oh, thank you.
And like I said, you'll see a lot more of Dawn. She's actually speaking on some of my stages. She's part of my students group as well. But I think she's an inspiration, especially for the younger people, the ones that are entering the real estate market, that you see that, you know, she's very accomplished. And I don't know if you want to share how many doors you have right now, because you're doing really, really well.
In South Carolina, we're right around 20 doors.
Yeah, so, you know, you can start from wherever you are and go out there, take action, decide on your goals, and then go for it. It's so important. And focus and consistency are definitely number one. So great. Thanks again for being here. And your puppy.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah.
There's Leela.
She's always with her. She takes her everywhere. She also on stage when she talks. So
she's the boss.
Yes,
this is boss right here. People in Greenville know me because of her.
Yeah, she's a great network marketing.
She is.
Yeah. Great. Thanks everybody for being here and listening to this. And I'll see you in the next broadcast. Thank you.